Wasabi Guy. Chris doesn't seem to have given him a name. The Wasabi Guy, leader, king, betrayed the Cherokee by stealing the crown of the Cherokee.
Shut up.
Beginning
Get the fuck out of here.
Between the two. As you can tell, this is very accurate to the real Cherokee people. Their battles raged on for an eternity until they were united by a common foe. The evil wizard known as Count Graduan. A character who started off as a personification of Chris's loneliness after graduating high school, and that eventually morphed into being reincarnated throughout time. That Chris, thinks is actually real. After uniting forces and successfully defeating Count Graduan, the Cherokee and the Wasabi clan would seal him within a magical orb, imprisoning him for hundreds and hundreds of years. Now, this story is explained in Sonichu Issue 2, which later down the road would be retconned a lot, and Chris would just change a bunch of shit for seemingly no reason. So let me do a little game theory for the timeline so it makes a little more sense. The timeline for how Chris described these events is really confusing. Chris first states that Graduan was born in 1357 to a family of British nobility, and then gets sealed in the orb in 1409, but Chris would later retcon this, probably because it doesn't make sense that any British people would be in North America in 1409, because, Christopher Columbus hadn't sailed the ocean blue in 1492 yet, so these events would have to take place at some point after 1492. But in 2017, Chris would give us a lot more lore and explain more about Count Graduan's story. In the revised version of the origin of Count Graduan, he's also born into a family of English nobility, but instead in the year 1433 during the Hundred Year War, and would enlist as a soldier, but sadly perished at the hands of a French soldier in 1448, but later would be reincarnated again as a British soldier in the American Revolution in Boston, taking part in the Boston Massacre, and eventually would retire after the Revolution and start living with esoteric Jew wizards. Don't laugh. Don't laugh. Who would take him under their wing and teach him the art of wizardry. And it's my theory that around this time he would return to America and fight the Cherokee and Wasabi clans, and then become imprisoned in the orb. And I guess this would happen at some point during the mid-1790s. But Chris, being Chris, states that Graduan dies of old age in the 1790s, which completely contradicts my theory, which makes none of this make any fucking sense. This makes no fucking sense. He should have been sealed in the 1790s. Why would Chris make it not that? It makes so much more sense that way. After sealing Graduan in the sphere, at some previously mentioned nonsensical period in time that makes no fucking sense, the ancient druids of the tribes would etch in stone a vision of the future known as the Ancient Prophecy, which is a pun that's super funny. The prophecy reading: it is prophesied by the ancient masters that the reincarnation of our leader will take pen in hand and combine a mouse and a hedgehog and give birth to a new electric creature. Then the leader will place his handmade medallion on the pedestal and release the powers that were his, as well as his lady and rivals' powers. The powers will transform you all into electric creatures with variable powers of good, bad, and peace. Also, an evil will strike the day the original electrical creature finds the cave. Only the released powers can defeat the evil. End quote. Knowing that eventually Count Graduan would one day be free, they sealed the prophecy, enshrined in pure gold deep beneath the ground in the dungeon beside Graduan, waiting for the day the chosen one would venture into the cave and meet his destiny. And in the year 1900, balls were invented. These ones. This will make sense further down the line, so keep watching. You'll get the balls lore.
At Canadian Tire, we're here for moments with Dad. From weekend projects to after-school fixes, our trusted tools make the perfect gift for the dads who do it all.
Skyscanner's top shelf. It saves us 30% on average when we compare flights and rental cars. Isn't that right, babe?
Oh, yeah.
Mumsy keeps snagging sweet deals on Skyscanner. You might be able to finally grow those playoff beards.
Who's the playoffs?
Thank you, Skyscanner.
This is a real story. It was my first week of playing the game, and it was on the old clubhouse. I was playing Thatcher.
In the fall of 1948, in a cave atop the ice-tipped peak of a mysterious mountain, somewhere in the lands that would one day be known as Quickville, a peculiar purple egg would hatch upon being struck by a mysterious rainbow of unknown origin.
Full shot,
hatching a mysterious purple hedgehog-like creature who soon after is met with the telepathic voice of a shadowy figure known as Mewtwo, who would take the young hedgehog under his wing and teach him the art of using his dormant telepathic psychic powers, until one day, after much training, he finally evolved into his true form, and henceforth would be known as Magi-Chan. Get it? It's like magician and Chan, Chris Chan, Magi-Chan. It's combined. It's a pun.
It's really funny.
Magi-Chan, soon after this evolution, would realize his true cosmic purpose in the universe. He was to psychically guide the soul of the Chosen One throughout the universe to meet his own destiny. The Chosen One being known as Chris. On February the 24th, 1982, a man named Robert Chandler would venture into Northern Virginia to found a magnificent city that he would name Quickville, based on the initials of his newly born son, Christian Weston Chandler. The hero and the grand messiah of our story. As Chris grew up, so did the city itself alongside him, till it eventually became a fully independent city-state under the completely, totally, definitely not dictatorial rule of Robert Chandler and his son. On June 12, 1991, a man named Reldmak Matsud Natsur would be born from an egg in rural Montana, where he would be raised by a gang of bikers who taught him how to eat their sketty, who taught him how to be strong and tough. His parents believed in letting their kid choose its own name, so on his 7th birthday, he chose the name Natsur, after having dreams from the future, where he'd come into contact with a man named Christian Weston Chandler. If you couldn't tell, Reldnak Natsud Natsur is Christian Weston Chandler backwards, which is fucking retarded. And then they died, because Team Rocket killed them. But miraculously, Natsur survived, and they took him under their wing, and taught him to be even more strong and badass and cool, until one day, he faced the man known as Christian Weston Chandler. From this point onward, a lot of the major plot points are mostly from the comics until the later half of the video. So remember, this isn't meant to be a summary of the comics, it's meant to be a summary of just the lore. So a lot of the comics are going to be skipped because legit a solid third of them are just complete filler that goes absolutely nowhere. So this is just the lore. No fuck filler. Lore 'em! And now we shall indulge in the sacred holy scriptures known as the Sonichu comics. In 2004, our savior, Christian Weston Chandler, would release his creative juices and would put pen to paper, bestowing the Sonichu comics upon humanity on the fated date of February 1st, 2003. Note that the quickie says that this takes place in 1998, but they're actually fucking wrong. The city of Station Square was under siege by the woesome infernal beast known as... Note that the quickie says that this takes place in 1998, but they're actually fucking... wrong. The city of Station Square was under siege by the woesome infernal beast known as the Perfect Chaos Monster. 5 miles away, a humble Pikachu watches on silently, observing the devastation. Meanwhile, Sonic springs into action and enters his supersonic form. But regrettably, Sonic is deflected by the Perfect Chaos Monster, colliding with a nearby Pikachu. The powers of both beings amalgamating into a brand new being. The fabled, infamous, feared, loved, reviled Sonichu. And in the blast, unleashing the chaotic rainbow, which would scatter beyond space and time. Remember when I said the Magi-Chan egg hatched because of mysterious rainbow? This was it. This was the rainbow. It's all connected. I'm a master filmmaker. At the exact same time, the fated chaotic rainbow would also land on a nearby male Raichu.
Oh, hell nah, nigga. Oh, you a dude, cut? Oh, that's fucked up, Lo.
In the original comic, it says a female Raichu, but Chris way later would change it to say that Roshu was born male, but got transgender surgery at some point. Nothing hilarious about that. The rainbow evolving into Sonichu's destined sweetheart, Rose-Chu. Back in Station Square, Sonichu and Sonic join forces to vanquish the Perfect Chaos Monster. After the long-fought battle, Sonichu would stumble upon his future wife-to-be, Rose-Chu, and would become boyfriend and girlfriend and have sex with Pikachu. Later, the new couple would go shopping, and Rose-Chu, the stupid bitch, only wants to buy clothes, That's all fucking women want. Go shopping and buy clothes, and eating hot shit and charge their phone. When suddenly, a Zapdos caves in the roof with the evil Nate Cirque at the helm. They fight, and Sonichu uses several ball-based attacks, including the infamously deadly Sky Uppercut, Mega Kick, and the mighty Double Team. Using these really badass, deadly attacks, the Zapdos is defeated, but Nate Cirque survives and swears revenge. Upon victory over Nate Cirque, the mayor of Quickville, Chris himself, comes to congratulate our hero. After literally just meeting Sonichu, Chris starts complaining to him about not having a girlfriend, and that he's actually a true cell, and not a fake cell piece of shit like Sonichu. God, I fucking hate fake cells! Oh, fucking fake cells piss me off! And then the issue ends, concluding the first installment of the sacred tapestry that is the Sonichu comics. After their last battle, Nate Cirque was able to recover strands of Sonichu's hair, containing his DNA, and began using it to bioengineer a being strong enough to one day defeat Sonichu. With the help of Dr. Robotnik from Sonic and Giovanni from Pokemon, as they were beginning the process on creating this fated being, Bill the scientist, the bumbling buffoon, spilled cherry cola over the DNA. But for some reason, they just don't give a shit and use the contaminated DNA anyways. The cherry cola giving the new Sonichu a darker color. The three immediately notice his swarthy necroidic appearance and dub him Black Sonichu, or as I know him, Nick. What I press to shoot now? They teach the newly born Sonichu about who he is, and that it is his destiny to destroy the one they know as Sonichu. Meanwhile, Sonichu is running around aimlessly with Rosechu, while 13%, 50% Sonichu watches them in hiding, like an r/atheism user watches his wife get railed by another man. When suddenly, Sonichu collides with Sonic, and seeing the opportunity, Dodge Hellcat Sonichu steals Rosechu, likely mistaking her for a white woman's purse. Seeing that Rosechu's been kidnapped, Sonic and Sonichu team up and chase after him, unknowingly falling right into their trap. Sonichu arrives at Nate Cirque and Robotnik's lair and gets ensnared in the energy force field thing, but is immediately saved by Sonic. And then everyone fights, and then Fried Chicken Sonichu is defeated, and Rosechu is saved. Hooray. While Sonichu is aimlessly running around Quickville, he stumbles upon a mysterious cave with an inscription referencing a fabled hero of destiny, who is the only one who may enter this cave. There's also an old man who looks like me in real life. Chris then somehow materializes out of thin air and joins with Sonichu. They then venture into the mysterious Cave of Destiny, where the cavekeeper informs the duo of the ancient prophecy, clever pun, which foretells of the reincarnation of the King of the Cherokee, who will take up pen and paper and combine a Sonic and Pikachu, creating the creature of prophecy. And then, the chosen one, Sonichu and Chris's true love, will enter the cave and have their ancient powers awakened and slay the evil beast of legend. Chris places the Sonichu medallion on the pedestal and is flooded with visions of a reincarnation of himself from the distant past, who's the leader of the ancient Cherokee clan. Chris then awakens his inner Sonichu and transforms into his erection-inducing alternate form, Chris Chan's Sonichu.
Electric control of power. This would be in my super mode. If I actually had the superpowers. But I don't in real life.
The resemblance is uncanny. Meanwhile, Wes Isley and Sarah Hammer are receiving their own medallions. They're probably wondering who those names are that I mentioned. At the time, Chris had a crush on his childhood friend Sarah Hammer, who was dating a guy named Wes Isley. And Chris was very Smucker's Concord grape jelly over her. So to cope with reality, Chris basically wrote into his comic that he was destined to get with Sarah, and that Wes was this evil, terrible bad guy who was out to get him, which is a very healthy way of processing relationships. I know every time I personally get rejected and black-pilled over my Norwooding and being sub-8, I write Sonic the Hedgehog fanfiction where I bag that bitch. Meanwhile, an evil wizard approaches Wes Isley and informs Wes that him and Chris are rivals, with reincarnations battling throughout the centuries. And then Wes transforms into an evil Sonichu with a lust for Chris's blood. Then Sarah is visited by the Queen of the Cherokee, informing her of the prophecy, and she becomes a Sonichu as well. Chris and Wes eventually meet and have their epic foretold battle, with Chris before the fight takes a moment to trauma dump to Wes.
Okay, I'll admit I was jealous of you because you get to spend more time with Sarah than I do. But I only felt jealousy because I cared about her.
That's my Chris Chan impression. The battle then commences. Wes is defeated, and Sarah then blackpills Wes. Yes, Wes, and I say that we are through. I do not love you anymore. And then Wes says, No! No! But suddenly, they learn of an invasion taking place in Quickville, and they levitate over there and discover that a massive stone golem is destroying the city, and it's being controlled by the evil witch known as Mary Lee Walsh. Now, a little info on Mary Lee Walsh. At the time, Chris was embarking on what he called his love quest, which is his way of saying that a quicka was trying to get some pussy. Shortly after his love quest, he would realize that just about every time he approached a woman, they would tell him that they already had a boyfriend, which was pretty much just a nice way of telling him to fuck off. Yeah, daddy! So he devised a devious plan. What if, instead of approaching women himself, the women would approach him? But how could this be done? How could this be possible? He knew a way. Deep into the night, he would forge the attraction sign. A sign that he could hang up anywhere. The woman would read and be drawn to him like moths to a flame by his suave white boy swag. But he was thwarted by a woman named Mary Lee Walsh, who tore down a sign that he placed on campus. Chris's jimmies were so rustled that he would write her into the comic as an evil witch. Big tangent. Anyways, where was I? Oh yeah, Mary Lee Walsh back in the city. As our heroes levitate towards the evildoers, they notice in Mary's hand a talking evil orb. The Cherokee and Wasabi clans may have put me away for centuries, but I will rule the world. It was Count Graduat himself. They then realized not to temporarily put aside their petty differences to defeat this beast. So Sarah, Chris, and Wes band together just as the Wasabi and Cherokee clans of their ancestors had done once hundreds of years before. Sarah would first shoot the golem in its eye, blinding it, while Wes would use his flame ability against its weak off-balance knees, while Chris attacks the now open center. Noticing the effectiveness, they would use Team Blast Blue Fireball to do spinny attack thing, and then, they won.
Oh no.
This soap is impeccable. They're the only The body wash ferocious. Get Dr. Squash your heart. Buy Dr. Squash for your skin. It's sold online at drsquash.com. Feel like a man, smell like a champ.
It's mesmerizing. Clean platinum. And float my feathers. It cuts through the slimy stuff better than their old dish soap.
You know the words memento mori? It means remember death. Remember.
Oh yeah, I'm probably gonna torrent that shit. Thanks for the free movie, bitch. Thanks for the ad, bitch. Nice, good for you. I said good for you.
Scatter 69 destined eggs across the cosmos, even though there's actually 70. Awakening the Sonichu species far and wide, including Ted Bundy Chew, Bill Cosby Chew, and Harvey Weinstein Chew. I am not joking about that, that's real. And yes, I'll come back to it later, but it's not important now. What you need to know is that the legendary blast of the chaotic rainbow in this exact moment would awaken 5 eggs. And what would emerge from these 4 eggs was the stuff of legends. Nestled deep within the labyrinthine expanse of the deep rainforest, the green egg would birth wild Sonichu, the grass and electric type hedgehog. These Sonichu but green. From the abyssal depths of the unfeeling sea emerges Bubbles Rose Chew, hedgehog of water and electricity, who's rose too but blue. From the holiest vestige of the high papacy emerged Angelica Rose-2, the flying electric-type Pokemon. She's Rose-2 but white. And lastly, from the Lego Ninjago emerges my favorite of the chaotic combo, Punchy Sonichu, the flying electric-type hedgehog. These knuckles, but these knuckles. He's literally just fucking knuckles. In the following chapter, resisting arrest Sonichu and Sonichu would meet once again. After Sonichu tried to steal the Sunstone. The Sunstone's a MacGuffin that's just introduced in this chapter and then never appears again, so you don't have to worry about it. But before the fated duel, loud on public transit Sonichu makes the fatal mistake of asking, "You in what army?" And then the rest of the guys appear behind Sonichu and look super fucking gangsta and badass. They're so gangsta and badass that they all team up after just meeting in this exact moment. And then Sonichu says, "My Calvary," which is a joke that does not make any sense because none of them are on horseback. Future Meatloaf here. Past Meatloaf is actually a fucking dumbass because cavalry can also refer to a source of rescue or help in an emergency. And then they have a big fight where Sonichu and the guys turn into a Jackson Pollock painting and they defeat Sonichu. I like how this issue ends with an ad for a number that you can call to get a free girlfriend delivered to your house.
Just call anonymous. You call anonymous. I can't. They know me. They know my voice. They'll know me. Please, you gotta do it for me. I'm begging you. Please.
Sonichu issue 4 is being skipped for not adding literally anything to the overarching plot. Except for having the best panel Chris would ever make, Big Sippa. Sonichu issue 5 begins with Sarah Hammer's wedding to some unknown individual, who is not Chris, which makes the last issue and the prophecy that the entire issue surrounds completely fucking pointless. And Wes tries to crash the wedding out of anger at being rejected by Sarah due to his low bone density, negative canthal tilt, and low facial harmony. But wait a minute, I thought the ancient prophecy clearly stated that Chris would marry Sarah. Yes, it did say that. That plot point is literally just completely forgotten after Chris found a new girl to quagmiriously obsess over, Megan Schroeder. So yeah, the last issue was completely fucking pointless. But suddenly, Wes barges in, enraged at the fact that Sarah wasn't marrying a supreme gentleman like him, and kidnaps her, and then he Derek Chauvin's Chris. Thankfully, we can rebuild him. Chris then gets up, and they have an epic battle. But when Chris seems on the verge of defeat, a projectile launched from some unknown figure saves Chris. Who could this mysterious figure be? I really want to know. It's Megan. It's Megan Schroeder and Magaji's skunk. The girl Chris desperately wanted to blow. She whips out her guitar and plays what I'd like to think is the timeless classic song, Hell Yeah, on the album Hell Yeah, by the band Hell Yeah. A timeless classic! Which causes Chris to be very aroused in what has to be the most fucking down bad illustration that has ever been put to paper in the history of the human race. This again vanquishes Wes, and Sarah is saved, and Wes is banished to the Shadow Realm using a Yu-Gi-Oh card. At some unspecified point in time later, still in the same issue, the Jerkoffs have taken over the city. They're patrolling the city like a fucking Gestapo, breaking up couples and thwarting all romance and relationships, making Virginia truly for virgins, at the command of the evil Mary Lee Walsh. You know, this is actually happening in real life. Well unaware of the wicked, dastardly events transpiring, Sonichu and Chris are sitting on a bench jerking each other off, while Chris rants about his relationship with Megan. Here is an excerpt.
Yeah, Pop. Just like me and Rosie. But Megan hasn't yet returned the feelings, right? Well, Sonichu, I've been feeling a lot better since I first met Megan. She's the sweetest, and she has the right spunk amount. Among all ladies. Yeah, but I've been very patient with Meg Chan by being a kind and understanding friend for her and giving her time and space and helping her feel good. Not only that, she's warming up to me. But with each amount of time I spend with her personally, with each of her warm, tender smiles, and with each loving thought about her, my heart grows fonder. The true love I feel for Megan
those two are the other hedgehogs, and I wish you the best of luck with her.
I find this really funny because he states that Megan was warming up to him, and while he was writing this exact issue, she was actively emailing him, saying that she's not interested in a relationship with him, and that he should stop touching her. Which, she's really warming up to you, bud. In Quickville Square, the evil witch Mary Walsh sends several forces of jerk-offs to overwhelm the city's own police and wreak havoc across Quickville as an intentional means of luring Chris and the guys into her trap. Chris and Sonichu make it to Quickville Square and immediately send word to the rest of the chaotic combo, along with Chris's make-believe twin sister, Crystal, who's here for some reason and is now also a Sonichu.
Yes, with my battalion of jerk-offs at the ready and the monster in my shadow, I'm sure to lure that nuisance Christian into my trap. When he stands in the rectangle below, I'll have him in my clutches.
Oh my god, that hurts so much. Every voice I've done in this video just fucking hurts. Chef from South Park also joins the fray and tells Chris that his design for Quickville Mall is bad, when in reality, his design is actually awesome. Yeah, this is awesome. Chris and Crystal then attempt to unscrew his head like a robot for some reason, but they're thwarted by Mary Lee Walsh's dark spear attack. Chef starts charging up for a slam attack, but is halted by a projectile being thrown by Megan. Megan then has Chris reconvene and reconsider his current strategy. So Chris and Crystal decide to do a merging soul pure pulse jolt lance. And Chris charges his curse Yehameha, but is deflected by Mary Lee Walsh's magic scepter, turning him back into his human form and plunging him into the dark abyss. But Mary Lee Walsh realizes Chris would suffer more if he lost Crystal, so she flips the spell, sending Crystal into the dark mirror. While still during the Battle of Quickville, Patty, Chandler, Chris's dog, and Darkbind Sonichu arrive and blast Mary Lee Walsh into a vortex.
Oh.
It looks like croissants. And Mary is launched far into the distance, defeated at last.
Why did they hype up the Mary Lee Walsh fight the entire last issue? And then in literally the next chapter, she gets beaten in like 2 panels. Why is it written like that? Why?
Later, our heroes venture into Chris's office, where they discuss how they need to get their hands on some big, multicolored balls.
HD?
Known as the Sonichu balls. Darkbind then trauma dumps about how his princess Zelina Rosechew was put under a curse of eternal sleep, and only the power of the balls can awaken her, presumably by their rancid ball scent, and that they've already found 2 of the balls. This might be my favorite panel in the entire series. My 2 balls. But suddenly their phallic object discussion is interrupted by an explosion, and they see that a mysterious evil green Sonichu is robbing K Jewelers and finds a purple ball in the rubble. The Sonichu ball. Our Grand Prophet Chris then arrives alongside Magichan and Sonichu and battles Nate Cirque, but they're repelled back, and without warning, the evil green Sonichu reveals himself as Raldnak Natsu Nate Cirque, who sends Chris into the dark dimension so they can discuss things. He then tells Chris how he's a complete inverse of him, who is the opposite of him in every way. Where Chris is good and righteous, Nate Cirque is evil. Where Chris is incredibly sexy and handsome, Nate Cirque is ugly and doesn't look smacks. And where Chris is extremely straight and hates penis, Nate Cirque is a huge fat. Nate Cirque is gay. Meanwhile, south side of a large metropolitan area, Sonichu informs our heroes of how Nate Cirque is also trying to find and presumably fondle the 7 Sonichu balls so he can take over the world and kill Christian Weston Chandler. They then break out of the dark dimension and transform into their Sonichu forms, and they have another Jackson Pollock painting battle. The Jackson Pollocking rages on, from location to location, until they eventually are in a place all too familiar to Chris, Manchester High School. Christian's back is slammed against the wall, on the verge of defeat, when Nate Cirque finally grasps the ball, and was nearly about to give the final blow. Farewell, Christian Weston Chandler. When moments before Chris is executed, Nate Circus hit in the head with a basketball coming from somewhere unknown. When an old, long-forgotten friend steps into frame. Bionic the Hedgehog, Chris's first ever OC, first drawn in 1996 and secretly abandoned by Chris until 2004. Bionic is the incredible combination of Sonic the Hedgehog and basketball. After being hit in the head with a basketball in high school, we then flash to the hospital where Nate Circus is waking up after the battle and he swears revenge against Chris. In Sonichu number 7, while still in Manchester High School, Magachi, Megan's OC, comes in and invites Bionic out on a date, to which Bionic makes this super alpha innuendo which gives me a boner. A kiss after this date, and after the third, we, he, ya, hey. Upon my further analysis into the literary works, this means sex.
Good for you, Bionic.
Seeing Megaji and Bionic together makes Chris Chan black pill incel ideology, and he starts to gently weep like George Harrison's guitar. But soon after, the gang realizes that the balls are nearby, so they go to search for them, but to no avail, until Magi-chan realizes that the ball is here in this exact place, but not in this exact time. Since the Sonichu balls are capable of moving beyond time, Magi-chan realizes that Chris has actually come into contact with the ball before, in November the 13th, 1996, when Chris was hit in the head with a basketball, which gave him the inspiration to create Bionic the Hedgehog. But it was no basketball. It was actually, the entire time, it was the Sonichu ball, which would be a cool plot twist if they talked about that previously in the story. Chris then does a Family Guy cutaway gag.
Peter, what are you doing?
Hello, Brian Griffin. I'm doing Sonichu issue number 7.
What the fuck?
Similar to how former Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison shit his pants in a McDonald's, Magi-chan then informs them that to go back in time, they must make a magic sphere around them. And if Sonichu runs fast enough on the sphere in the opposite direction, they'll be able to go back in time to Chris Chan's high school to get Sonichu balls off the menu. That's right. Chris and Sonichu are going back in time to Chris's high school to get Sonichu balls off the menu. That's right! Chris and Sonichu are going back! They arrive in the past at Chris's high school and see an unsuspecting young Chris with his friend Joe Herring, who's talking about how he tossed salad with his girlfriend the other night. And I don't think that Chris knew what that phrase meant when he wrote this.
I was eating some booty cheeks.
Chris then starts spouting off memories from his time here at Manchester High School, when suddenly the ball appears just above his head. They catch it right after it hits young Chris's head, and in that exact moment, a flash of inspiration was ignited that inflamed into a spark of genius, implanting a young Chris's mind with his first ever original character, Bionic the Hedgehog, creating a long line of creative lineage, and the rest is history. Yeah. I can't take it anymore! Chris, Magi-chan, and Sonichu then head back to the present, but as they're stopping, the power of the balls triggers on accident, launching Chris through the time sphere into the abyssal depths of infinite time. I'm not picking up his presence nearby. Wait. Ah! We lost him! We lost Chris! Meanwhile, from the dark depths of the criminal underground of Quittville, the darkest, most depraved villains Chris had ever put to page were joining their evil forces under the command of Mary Lee Walsh, which I feel like I said 40